HOA Karen used her drone to spy on my backyard. Damn, who does she think she is? So I called the sheriff, and she filmed her own arrest. I gave her what she deserved, and maybe even a little more, I confess. When the sheriff's SUV rolled into Sun Valley Estates that afternoon, I was already on my front porch in a pink cardigan, sipping chamomile tea like it was just another sunny Arizona day. On my iPad, though, I was watching the live feed from my security cameras, zoomed straight in on my neighbor Carol's front door. The deputy stepped out holding a very familiar little drone by one broken propeller. I recognized it instantly. Same obnoxious buzz that had been hovering over my pool while I was in a bikini and Carlos was laughing in the water. Carol waddled out in that floral dress and orthopedic sandals, clutching her phone like a holy relic and her HOA rulebook like a badge. She actually started recording the sheriff as he walked up. "I'm glad you're here, officer," she snapped. "We have a serious violation in Lot 14. Ongoing misconduct." He didn't even look at my house. He held up the drone instead. "Ma'am, we're here about this," he said, "and about the video you recorded with it." The way her smile died should have been framed. When he turned her around, and I heard the cuffs click, she was still trying to quote HOA bylaws like they overruled state privacy laws. If you've ever wanted to see an HOA bully choke on their own rules, go ahead and subscribe now because this only gets better. She thought she was documenting my violation. She had no idea she'd just filmed her own arrest. And to understand how we got there, we need to go back a few weeks. I didn't move to Sun Valley Estates to fight anyone. I moved here to forget that fighting used to be my full-time job. I spent 35 years as an IRS auditor, the kind that made CEOs sweat through $1,000 shirts. My nickname in the office was the Shark, and not because I had sharp teeth. I just had a very good memory and an even better calculator. By the time I retired at 63, I'd seen every scam, every creative expense, every shell company with a P.O. box, and no furniture. I promised myself that chapter of my life was over. Sun Valley Estates looked like the perfect retirement brochure. Beige stucco houses, desert landscaping, bougainvillea climbing over fences, and that particular stillness you only get in Arizona afternoons when the heat is so heavy even the birds give up. My house was modest, but the backyard was my kingdom. A small pool, a line of red roses that always won the HOA's gardening contest, and a shaded corner where I could read on my iPad and pretend the world was simple. The neighbors knew me as Miss Eleanor with the roses. I baked lemon bars for block parties. I reminded people to wear sunscreen. Most of them had no idea I could look at a budget and tell you in under 10 minutes who was stealing. I liked it that way. Let them see the cardigan and the reading glasses and assume I was harmless. It's peaceful being underestimated. Then came Carlos. He was supposed to be temporary, my pool guy's cousin, helping out for a few weekends. He was polite, careful with his English, and somehow managed to make carrying a skimmer pole look like an ad for gym memberships. We started talking. Then we started laughing. Then one day he stayed for dinner, and suddenly temporary turned into toothbrush in my bathroom drawer. We were an odd picture. 65-year-old retired auditor in a pink cardigan and a 40-year-old fitness junkie who still flinched when he saw a police cruiser. His immigration status was delicate, let's say, not a secret, but not something you shout over the fence either. I understood what it meant to live with paperwork hanging over your head. I also understood how easily the wrong kind of attention could ruin someone like him. That's why I kept things quiet. No loud parties, no fights, no drama. Just grilled chicken by the pool, late-night conversations under string lights, and early mornings where he'd go to work and I'd wave from the porch with my tea. I thought, foolishly, that if we were boring enough, the world would leave us alone. For a while, it did. The only sounds were sprinklers, distant traffic, and the occasional whir of a golf cart from the HOA patrol making its rounds at a respectable distance. I saw the rule book. I signed the documents. I had no problem following reasonable guidelines. After decades enforcing regulations, I'm actually very good at coloring inside the lines. What I didn't know then was that in Sun Valley estates, the real predators didn't swim in oceans or sit in corporate boardrooms. They drove golf carts, carried clipboards, and got very, very bored. The first time I saw Carol up close, she was driving a golf cart like it was a patrol cruiser. I was trimming my roses, sun hat on, minding my own business. The afternoon light was sharp, bouncing off every beige wall in Sun Valley estates. I heard the low hum of the cart before I saw her. It slowed down right in front of my house and stopped with a little squeak of protest from the brakes. Out stepped this woman with curly red hair cropped too short, like she fought with a stylist and lost. She had on a faded floral dress, thick sandals, and a pair of oversized glasses that made her look perpetually offended at the world. Clipboard tucked under one arm, tape measure hanging from her belt like a holster. "You must be Eleanor," she said, not smiling. It wasn't a question. "I must be," I answered, clipping one last rose and setting it in the basket. "And you are—" "Carol, neighborhood compliance chair." She flipped her clipboard dramatically, like she expected thunder to roll in the distance. "I just wanted to have a friendly chat about a couple of items. I've been audited. I've done audits. That tone is universal." She pointed at my front porch. "According to Section 4.3, outdoor decor must be in earth tones only. That pink watering can is a little loud for community standards." I glanced at the watering can, soft pastel pink, the kind you buy when a store wants to sell you grandma aesthetic. I looked back at her. "Is that so?" I said. "I must have missed that in the handbook." She smiled then, a tight little thing that never reached her eyes. "A lot of new residents do. We're very serious about uniformity here. It affects property values." Translation: she was bored. And boredom plus a clipboard is dangerous. Her eyes slid past me, over my shoulder, and locked onto the driveway where Carlos's old pickup sat. He was inside, showering after work, windows cracked to let the heat out. You could still see his work boots in the truck bed, dusted with concrete and desert dirt. "And that vehicle," she went on, tapping her pen against the clipboard, "appears to have been parked overnight multiple times this week." "It has," I said evenly. "He works long hours. Sometimes it's late. We have rules about long-term guests," she said. "They need to be registered with the HOA office. Background checked. Approved." The way she lingered on background told me exactly what she was really inspecting. I kept my voice soft. "Carlos is my partner. He's not a guest." Her eyebrows shot up a fraction. "Oh, well, all the more reason to make sure everything is documented." She wrote something down on the clipboard with furious little scratches. "You'll be receiving a notice, just formalities." She took a step back, and her gaze did a quick scan of my front yard, the roses, the gravel, the small ceramic frog by the path. Her mouth tightened. "And your roses are currently at 28 inches. Maximum height allowed is 24. We can't have anyone blocking sight lines or creating hiding spots. For extremely short burglars?" I asked, blinking. She didn't laugh. "It's in the guidelines, Mrs. Vance. I didn't write them. I just enforce them." I almost told her I'd spent decades enforcing rules more complicated than anything in her binder, but I let it go. I'd retired from sharks, remember? This was supposed to be my calm chapter. Still, I watched her as she shuffled back to her cart. The way she glanced at my windows. The way she lingered just a second too long on Carlos's truck. The way her fingers caressed the bold HOA letters on her rule book like it was a weapon. A day later, I got the letter. Formal warning in bold at the top. 3 paragraphs about the watering can. 2 about the roses. A closing line about unregistered overnight occupancy of vehicle associated with non-listed resident. That one I read twice. Carlos saw it on the counter that night. His shoulders tensed, jaw clenching the way it did whenever someone in authority started sniffing around his life. "Is this bad?" he asked quietly. "For us." I folded the paper carefully and slid it into a folder I'd labeled HOA Correspondence. Old habits die hard. Not yet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stomp to the office. I didn't write an angry Facebook post. I just opened my laptop, pulled up the HOA bylaws, and started reading line by tedious line. If you've ever had your piece poked by a bored little tyrant with a clipboard, hit the like button. You already know, the petty stuff is never really about the watering can. That warning should have been my first clue. Carol wasn't just nosy. She was hunting. And she hadn't even taken her most invasive toy out of the box yet. Carol didn't come back right away with another letter. That would have been too obvious. Instead, the neighborhood started shifting. It was little things at first. I'd be out front clipping my roses and see Mrs. Harper from 2 houses down walking her dog. Normally she'd stop, gossip about the weather, ask about my latest book. This time, she slowed, looked at me, then at Carlos's truck in the driveway, and kept walking. No wave, no smile, just a tight little nod. 2 days later, I noticed a new post on the community Facebook group. I don't post there, but I absolutely read everything. Occupational hazard. It was from someone named C.R. with a picture of a random stock house and the caption, "Friendly reminder. HOA rules about unregistered occupants and unauthorized overnight parking are there to keep everyone safe. If you see something, say something. We don't know who people really are." Beneath it, there were comments. "So true. Thank you for keeping an eye out. Some people think rules don't apply to them." None of them mentioned my name. They didn't have to. Carlos read it over my shoulder, frowned, and stepped back like the words might burn him. "They're talking about us," he said. "They're talking about the idea of us." I corrected, closing the app. "They don't know us. That's our advantage." The next week, a sticky note appeared on my front door. No letterhead, no signature, just 4 words written in all caps. "Check the rules, Eleanor." I held it between 2 fingers like it might be contagious and slid it into my HOA folder. Anonymous pettiness always goes behind a tab labeled Patterns of Behavior. At the mailbox cluster, conversation stopped when I walked up. People suddenly remembered they'd left the oven on. One woman, younger, with a toddler on her hip, gave me an apologetic half-smile. "I heard some concerns," she murmured, leaning closer. "They're saying your friend might not be here legally. Carol said the HOA could get in trouble if they don't deal with it." The way she whispered, "deal with it," made my teeth itch. Carol must be very bored. I replied, "That's dangerous in someone with a golf cart and too much authority." The woman laughed nervously, then hurried away. Carlos felt it before I did. He started parking his truck a block over to not cause problems. He double-checked the locks at night. When we walked around the neighborhood, he kept his head down if a golf cart rolled by. One afternoon, I caught him hesitating at the front door. "What's wrong?" I asked. He shrugged one shoulder. "I don't like how they look at you now. Like you did something bad, just because of me." I wanted to tell him I didn't care what they thought, that their opinions slid off me like sunscreen on a July afternoon. But that wasn't entirely true. I didn't care about popularity. I cared about patterns. And I'd seen this one before. Different context, different stakes, same ugly shape. Someone in a small position of power stoking fear and suspicion to make themselves feel bigger. The next HOA newsletter arrived folded perfectly in my mailbox, Carol's name in bold, under compliance chair's corner. Her little column that month was about maintaining moral standards and protecting families from inappropriate activity visible from neighboring lots. Inappropriate activity. I stared at those words for a long moment. We didn't have parties. We didn't scream at each other in the yard. We wore more clothes to the pool than half the people I saw on vacation brochures. The only inappropriate activity she could possibly be referring to was the fact that I was 65, happy, and in love with a man she thought should belong to someone younger and probably whiter. That night, someone dropped another anonymous note. This one wasn't even pretending to be about rules. Is he using you for papers? No signature. No courage. Just cowardice in ink. Carlos didn't see that one. I slipped it straight into my folder, under the tab now called Motives. By then, my phone had a whole album of small incidents. The golf cart pausing just a little too long in front of our house, Carol craning her neck over our side wall, neighbors' sideways glances, the subtle way conversations died when I mentioned Carlos's name. Most people would have confronted her in the street, shouted, made a scene. I've seen how that plays out. Lots of heat, no light. And it never holds up when you need it to, in front of a judge or an investigator, or a board that suddenly pretends they had no idea. So I smiled more. I baked extra lemon bars for the next block gathering and watched who refused to take a plate. I noted who stood next to Carol, who echoed her phrases about standards and the kind of community we want to be. They thought they were isolating me. What they were really doing was sorting themselves into neat little categories. Witnesses, allies, enablers, right in front of my eyes. And through all of it, Carol's eyes kept drifting past my front yard toward the high wall around my backyard, the one place she couldn't easily see. Yet, it happened on a Tuesday, the kind of searing Arizona afternoon, when the air itself hums. The kind of day where even the cacti looked tired. Carlos and I had decided to take a swim before sunset. He'd just finished a long day doing landscaping work in Mesa, and his shoulders were slick with sweat and dust. I remember the smell of chlorine and sunscreen, the hiss of the pool filter, the quiet we'd fought so hard to protect. And then, at first, I thought it was just a big fly. Then the sound grew sharper, mechanical, the kind of sound that makes the back of your neck tighten before your brain catches up. Carlos noticed it before I did. He was leaning against the pool edge, grinning about something I'd said, and suddenly he froze. "Eleanor," he whispered. "Look." Over the stucco wall, a small black drone hovered like a metallic hornet. Its camera gimbal glinted in the sunlight, rotating slowly until the lens pointed straight at us. For a second, my brain refused to process it. It was so absurd, so blatant, that I almost laughed. Then the realization settled. Carol, the way it moved, methodical, slow, tilting slightly as it scanned, wasn't some teenager's toy. It was surveillance. Carlos's reaction was instinctive. He shot out of the pool, grabbed a towel, eyes darting around like he was being hunted. "We have to get inside," he said, voice low but shaking. "They'll call someone. They'll say I'm—" "Stop." My voice came out sharper than I intended, but it worked. He froze. "Don't give her what she wants," I said quietly, stepping out of the pool. I didn't even bother to cover up. I walked toward the edge of the water, face calm, heart hammering in my chest. If you yell, if you throw something, she wins. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Documenting," I said, reaching for my phone. I zoomed in. The drone wobbled slightly, refocusing, then pivoted toward the sky. I caught the red, recording light. Perfect. I filmed it for 20 seconds, enough for the timestamp, the proof of altitude, and the clear visual of my property line. Then I lowered the phone. "Go inside," I told Carlos softly. "Make tea. I'll be right there." He looked at me like I was insane, but he went. He trusted me. Poor man didn't yet understand that my version of revenge wasn't loud. It was procedural. The drone lingered another minute, hovering as if to provoke me. Then it tilted backward and zipped away, rising over the rooftops in the direction of Carol's house, 2 blocks north. I kept the phone steady until it disappeared, then took a deep breath and walked inside. Carlos had the blinds half drawn and a mug shaking slightly in his hand. "She saw us," he muttered. "She's going to tell people things." "She saw what I allowed her to see," I said, drying my hands and pulling my iPad closer. "And she recorded what I needed her to record." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I started compiling. I downloaded the drone footage from my phone, synced the timestamps with the HOA's email logs, and saved the files under a new folder. HOA privacy violation. Then I wrote my first email. To HOA board subject, inquiry regarding authorized drone inspections. Dear board members, I noticed aerial activity over my property this afternoon, specifically a drone conducting what appeared to be visual inspection within my backyard walls. Could you confirm whether this was an officially sanctioned compliance inspection? If so, please provide documentation of authorization, including the operator's identity, date, and purpose, as required under HOA Policy 7.4 regarding privacy and nuisance prevention. Thank you for your prompt clarification. Eleanor Vance. I hit send and smiled. Anyone else would have thought it was a polite request from a confused retiree. Carol, however, would see it and think I was scared, that she'd rattled me. And she would respond. She couldn't resist. The next morning, at 8:12 a.m., the reply came. From Carol R. Mrs. Vance, I assure you that all inspections are conducted under HOA guidelines. Yesterday's drone use was part of routine visual monitoring for backyard violations, specifically unauthorized modifications and unapproved pool equipment. You were not targeted. Please refer to Section 9.1 regarding the HOA's right to ensure community standards are upheld. Regards, Carol R., Compliance Chair. I read that twice, then laughed out loud. She put it in writing. What she didn't realize was that Section 9.1 didn't exist. The rule book jumped from 8.9 straight to 9.3. I knew, because I'd already read every page. That email wasn't just arrogance. It was a confession. I looked out the window at her perfect lawn and the neat little golf cart parked in her driveway. Somewhere inside that house was the memory card with footage she'd illegally recorded, and all I had to do was let her keep digging. Carlos came up behind me, still anxious. "What are you going to do now?" I smiled, sipping my tea. "Oh, sweetheart," I said, "I'm going to let her record again. Because the best way to catch a bully is to make her believe she's still in control, right up until the drone flies straight into her own trap. The thing about people like Carol is they think rules are a stick. After that drone stunt and her little email about authorized inspections, I stopped pretending I was just Miss Eleanor with the roses. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, pulled the HOA documents into one window and state statutes into another, and let the old version of me wake up. I hadn't planned to ever bring her back. The woman who could quote federal regulations from memory. The auditor who once shut down a department because a manager thought he was smarter than the IRS. But that Tuesday night, with Carlos sleeping uneasily in the next room, I realized retirement only works if the sharks stay in their own ocean. Carol had just crawled into mine. Most people read HOA bylaws the way they read terms and conditions. They don't. I read every word. I highlighted the privacy clauses, the nuisance provisions, the line about no intrusive surveillance equipment may be used to view the interior of another lot's enclosed yard. Then I opened the state's criminal code and looked up harassment, stalking, voyeurism, unlawful surveillance. Same buzzwords, over and over: expectation of privacy, recording without consent, pattern of behavior. Every line she crossed clicked into place like a puzzle I'd solved 100 times before, just with bigger numbers on the checks. The next morning, I called the non-emergency line for the sheriff's office. My voice was calm, almost bored. "Ma'am, is this happening right now?" the dispatcher asked. "Not at this exact second," I said, "but I have video, timestamps, and an email where she admits it was an inspection. I'd like to know which statutes apply before she gets ambitious." There was a pause. Papers shuffled, keys clacked. When she came back, her tone had changed. "If you have that documented," she said slowly, "it could fall under unlawful surveillance. If it shows repeated behavior, stalking or harassment, an officer can take a report, but keep collecting anything you see." I printed everything: the drone video, Carol's email, my original confused little homeowner inquiry. I slipped them into plastic sleeves, labeled each one neatly. Then I made a second folder, not for the sheriff, for the HOA. Curiosity got the better of me, so I logged into the homeowners portal and downloaded every financial statement for the last 3 years, budgets and landscaping fees. To the average person, it's boring paperwork. To me, it's an X-ray. Within 20 minutes, I circled my first red flag. A landscaping company that didn't exist 3 years ago, suddenly getting the largest contract. An address that matched a P.O. box. A last name on the check request that looked awfully familiar. "Oh, sweetheart," I murmured to no one in particular, "you've been very busy, haven't you?" In that moment, any fear I'd felt melted into something colder and sharper. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor with a drone. This was a small-time tyrant using a little system as her castle. That night at dinner, Carlos watched me as I sorted papers into piles. "You look different," he said slowly, like when I met my old boxing coach, and his eyes changed before a fight. I smiled. "I used to audit corporations and rich people for a living," I said, "the kind who thought rules were for other people. Carol is just a cheap remake." He stared. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to be done with it," I admitted. "I wanted to just be your retired lady, with roses." I tapped the folder with the drone video, but she brought work into my backyard. That was a mistake. Outside, I heard the distant whir of a golf cart making its evening rounds. Somewhere in that dark, Carol was probably feeling untouchable, thinking her little machine had scared us back into our house. She had no idea that by flying that drone over my wall, she'd done 2 things I absolutely love. She'd violated a clear rule, and she'd left a paper trail. You know what I'd like to know, my friend? Is it possible that these kinds of problems have happened in your HOA too? Or if I'm the only unlucky one going through this? Tell me in the comments and clear this up for me, please. The next few days looked quiet from the outside. From the inside, it was war prep. I started with my house. I adjusted my security cameras so they covered not just the gate and the pool, but a slice of sky above the back wall and a clean line toward Carol's roof line. One camera got a slightly higher angle. Another got its motion sensitivity cranked up. If her little toy came back, my system would see it before I did. Then I put a spiral notebook on the kitchen counter and wrote, in neat block letters on the first page, "Incident log, Sun Valley Estates." Every time I heard that golf cart, every time I saw Carol slow in front of my driveway, every time a neighbor made a sideways comment, it went in the log. Date, time, who, what, and whether there was video. IRS habit. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. I started having small, innocent conversations. At the mailboxes, I asked Mrs. Harper if she'd noticed the drone. Her eyes flashed. "Oh, that thing," she said. "It flew over my yard last week. I thought it was your grandson's." "No," I said mildly. "We don't own one." She frowned. "Well, I saw Carol standing in her driveway with a controller. I thought it was weird. Would you be willing to say that again if someone official asked?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "If I have to." Log entry. Potential witness. Meanwhile, the financials kept me entertained. Our preferred landscaping vendor, Desert Crest Services, shared a last name with the HOA treasurer. A quick public records search confirmed my suspicion. Same address as his brother-in-law. Checks out of the HOA account like clockwork. Always just under the threshold that would trigger a member vote. Cute. I didn't need to blow that up yet. That was a spare grenade. For now, I just highlighted, printed, and filed it under leverage, financial. Then I crafted my second email. "Dear Carol, thank you for confirming that the drone inspections are part of routine monitoring. For my records, could you please send me the specific policy authorizing aerial surveillance over enclosed backyards, including any board minutes approving its use? I just want to make sure I'm fully compliant with sections 7.4 and 9.1 as you referenced. Eleanor." There was no section 7.4 about drones. I wanted to see if she'd notice. She didn't. "Mrs. Vance, as stated, the HOA has broad authority to inspect for violations, including through aerial means when necessary. There is no requirement for additional notice before such inspections." Carol, broad authority, aerial means, no requirement for notice. In writing, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. If you've ever quietly built a case file on someone who thought you were harmless, you know exactly how satisfying it is. And if you haven't, you might want to subscribe, because this is where the fun really starts. With the surveillance and paper trail in place, I set the next phase in motion. Bait. I drafted one more email, this time to the full board, not just Carol. "Dear board, this weekend I'll be making some significant changes to my backyard setup. I've reviewed the guidelines and believe I'm in full compliance, but I know enforcement has become more proactive recently. Please let me know if any inspections are planned, so I can ensure the gate is unlocked. I'd hate to accidentally interfere with HOA procedures. Warmly, Eleanor." No details, no specifics, just enough to light up every suspicious neuron in Carol's brain. Significant changes in my backyard? She'd be vibrating. I printed the sent email, highlighted significant changes, and slid it into the bait tab. Carlos watched me label the folder and shook his head. "You don't just fight people," he said slowly. "You design the whole ring first." "Something like that," I replied. Out in the cul-de-sac, the evening was calm. Kids rode bikes. Sprinklers spat half-heartedly at desert grass. Somewhere behind all that, a bored woman with a drone and too much authority was convincing herself she'd finally found a way to put me in my place. She thought I was waiting for her to slip. I wasn't. I was building the trap door she was about to step through. Saturday showed up bright, hot, and smug. The kind of day the HOA uses for brochure photos. Kids in sprinklers, couples walking tiny dogs, everything looking just a little too perfect. I woke up early and made sure my stage was set. First, the significant changes I'd hinted at. I didn't do anything illegal. That's the thing about malicious compliance. The compliance part has to be airtight. We moved a few potted plants around the pool. Carlos helped me set up a new set of solar string lights along the back wall. I brought out a small outdoor bar cart, neatly arranged with plastic cups, sparkling water, and exactly one bottle of wine, still sealed. Everything looked suggestive of a party of rule-breaking of something juicy without actually breaking a single line in the handbook. Meanwhile, inside, my monitors were a different kind of party. All 4 camera feeds up on the iPad. Front door, side yard, pool, and that little slice of sky above the back wall. I tested the recording, checked the time sync, and set an extra backup recording on my old phone, just in case. Carlos watched me from the sliding door, arms crossed. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm certain." He didn't laugh. What if she calls immigration? What if she says we were? She's already saying it. I cut in gently. The only difference now is that I'm going to make her say it into microphones that matter. Around 4 o'clock, we started the event. If you can call 2 people, a Bluetooth speaker on low volume, and some grilled chicken, an event. I put on a modest swimsuit with a long cover-up, the kind that would make a church lady nod approvingly. Carlos stuck to swim trunks and a t-shirt. No grinding, no making out in public, no wild dancing. Just a couple enjoying their backyard. I could feel the eyes on us, even through stucco. Windows that weren't usually open were cracked just an inch. A golf cart rolled by out front, slow, pausing a beat too long before moving on. The air had that heavy, expectant tension of an office right before a surprise audit. We ate. We joked. We made a show of adjusting the new items in the yard. Carlos moved a potted cactus 3 inches. I tilted the bar cart umbrella. We turned the string lights on while the sun was still up. Everything about it screamed possible violation to someone who wanted it to. And then, right on cue, bzzzzzzzzz. The hair on my arms prickled. I didn't look up immediately. Predators get excited when prey startle. I just took a sip of my drink and glanced casually at the pool camera feed on my iPad, sitting on the table like I was checking a recipe. There it was, tiny, black, smug, flying exactly the same arc as before, cresting over the top of my back wall, and hovering above our pool. The camera tilted down, centering on us. I set my glass down. "Showtime," I murmured. Carlos tensed. "Eleanor." "Breathe," I told him. "You're fine. We're fine. She's the only one committing crimes here." I tapped the record icon manually, even though the system was already capturing everything. Belt and suspenders. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the non-emergency sheriff line I'd saved as a favorite the day after the first incident. "Maricopa County Sheriff. How can I help you?" A calm voice answered. "Yes, hi," I said, voice as mild as if I were ordering a pizza. "This is Eleanor Vance at Sun Valley Estates, Lot 14. I called earlier this week about unlawful drone surveillance and was advised to document repeat behavior. The drone is currently over my enclosed backyard right now. I have video from today and last week, plus an email where the operator admits it's an inspection. On the screen, the drone dipped lower, as if trying to zoom in. It caught Carlos, fully clothed, sitting at the edge of the pool. Me, in my grandmother-approved cover-up. The significant changes, lights, plants, bar cart, framed us like a crime scene in Carol's imagination. The dispatcher's tone sharpened. "Is the operator identifiable, ma'am?" "The drone returns directly to my neighbor at Lot 7. I said, "She is the HOA compliance chair and has acknowledged using it for inspections in writing. I'd like an officer to witness the drone's path back to her property, if possible." "Understood. Stay inside if you feel unsafe. A unit is on the way." "Thank you," I said. "For what it's worth, we're just sitting by the pool. Any violation will be entirely in her head." I hung up and set the phone down. "Should we go inside?" Carlos asked. "Not yet," I said. "We're not doing anything wrong. The video needs to show that. Let her keep recording her fantasy. The sheriff will be very interested in the difference between her story and my footage." We stayed like that for another minute, maybe 2. Then, as if hearing a silent dog whistle, the drone rose, pivoted, and flew away, tracing a neat line over rooftops toward Carroll Street. I stood, collected my iPad, and finally nodded toward the door. Now we go in. From the living room window, curtains barely parted, we watched. The drone dipped behind Carol's house and vanished. Less than 2 minutes later, a sheriff's SUV rolled into the subdivision, turned down our street, and kept going. Not toward us, toward her. From my living room window, I watched the patrol SUV roll past my driveway like we were invisible and stop right in front of Carol's house. Carlos stood beside me, fingers digging into the curtain. "He's not stopping here," he whispered. "No," I said. "He's stopping where the crime lives." Carol must have seen the lights because she burst out her front door, already recording on her phone, floral dress billowing, HOA rulebook clutched to her chest. She marched down her walkway like she was about to write the sheriff a ticket. "I'm so glad you're here, officer," she announced loudly, panning her phone dramatically toward our side of the street. "We have residents violating community standards and possibly federal law. I've been documenting everything." The deputy didn't even glance at us. He stepped out holding the drone by one arm like a misbehaving puppy. "Ma'am," he said, "we're here about this." Her smile twitched. That's just HOA equipment. I was conducting an authorized inspection of a suspected violation. I have the authority to. He cut her off. "Did you fly this over your neighbor's enclosed backyard and record them without their consent?" She actually scoffed. "Of course I did. How else am I supposed to catch people breaking the rules? The board gave me," because he said slowly, "Your neighbor called us before you did." She provided video of this drone over her property, logs of repeated surveillance, and copies of emails where you admit to using it for routine monitoring. You could see the exact moment it clicked in her eyes that I'd been playing a different game. "That old woman?" she snapped. "She's just mad I'm enforcing standards. Her guest is probably illegal. I was protecting the community." The deputy's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, your neighbor's immigration situation is not your jurisdiction. What is my jurisdiction is unlawful surveillance and harassment." He nodded toward another patrol car pulling up. "Step over here, please." Her phone was still rolling. She swung it back and forth between the deputy and my house, narrating like she was the hero. "You see this? This is what happens when HOAs try to keep neighborhoods safe. We're being punished for doing our jobs. We have to watch these people. They bring down property values." "Ma'am," the second deputy said, "I'm going to ask you to put the phone down." "I have rights," she shrieked. Section something." Her brain reached for HOA bylaws like they outranked state law. "Absolutely," the first deputy said calmly. "And you can talk about them at the station." When he turned her around and the cuffs clicked, the entire cul-de-sac went silent. Sprinklers kept hissing. A dog barked once, confused. Blinds that had been barely cracked were suddenly wide open. Carol twisted to look at my house, eyes full of pure hatred. "You think this is over, Eleanor?" she yelled. "Everyone will see what you two are doing back there." I stepped out onto my porch, cardigan buttoned, teacup in hand, cameras still recording from 3 angles. I didn't raise my voice. "Good," I called back. The lighting was excellent. She didn't get it. Not yet. The deputy gently pried the phone from her hand, preserving her precious evidence as, ironically, evidence. The drone went into an evidence bag. Carol went into the back of the SUV, still ranting about moral standards and strangers. That night, someone sent me a link. Carol had managed to upload part of her video before they took her in. She'd captioned it, "HOA hero harassed for enforcing rules." I hit play. There she was, breathless and indignant, filming the deputy, screaming about me, about Carlos, about people like that. Then, the moment the cuffs went on, comments were already pouring in. Lady, you can't spy on people's backyards. Imagine being this obsessed with your neighbor's pool. Plot twist, grandma's a lawyer and you just confessed on camera. If you were watching this, what would you comment on that video? Side with the drone or the grandma? Let me know in the comments because the internet sure picked a side, and I hadn't even dropped the financial bomb yet. The fallout started quietly, much quieter than Carol's screaming. 2 days after her arrest, the HOA sent out an emergency email blast. Due to recent events, the board will hold a special closed meeting to review compliance procedures and leadership roles. No mention of drones. No mention of unlawful surveillance. Just recent events, like she tripped on a sidewalk instead of hand-delivering evidence in handcuffs. I didn't wait for an invitation. I printed my 2 favorite folders: HOA, privacy violation, and leverage, financial. I put on my neat khaki pants, my soft blue polo, my Arizona Diamondbacks cap, retired grandma going to a chat, nothing more. Then I walked to the clubhouse. The board wasn't happy to see me, but they were too nervous to say no. The president's smile looked glued on. The treasurer's hands shook slightly as he shuffled papers. 2 other members stared at the table like they hoped it would swallow them. I'll be brief, I said, setting my folders down. You have a legal problem and a money problem. The good news is they can both be solved. The bad news is they both have my attention now. I slid the privacy folder across first. This one you already know about. You have an officer charged with unlawful surveillance. She used HOA authority as justification. On video, she referenced board approval that does not exist in your minutes. I watched that land. Now, that's survivable if the board distances itself, cooperates fully with the sheriff, and implements a written ban on any future use of aerial surveillance. I smiled pleasantly, with an apology to the affected residents. Of course. The president cleared his throat. We were not aware of the extent. I know, I said, because unlike some people, you have the sense to fear paper. I tapped the second folder. This one, though, this is what you should be losing sleep over. Landscaping invoices. Vendor contracts, copy-pasted line items, month after month, just under member approval thresholds. I'd marked them with colored tabs, like a teacher grading a bad essay. I used to audit corporations and high-net-worth individuals. I said softly, if I send this packet to the Attorney General's office and the IRS, I can promise you 2 things. 1, they will absolutely open a case. 2, they will absolutely look at every single person who signed these checks. No one breathed. I am not here today as your enemy, I went on. I just want peace, privacy, and for my partner not to live under threat because a bored woman with a golf cart decided he looked suspicious. So here's my offer. I laid it out like a settlement. Carol permanently removed from any HOA position and barred from acting in any enforcement capacity. A formal written policy banning drones, telephoto lenses, and any intrusive surveillance of backyards. A public statement clarifying that my household is in good standing and has broken no rules. Full cooperation with the sheriff's investigation into Carol, including turning over her emails and any footage she logged as inspections. An independent audit of the HOA's finances, with results shared to all residents. In return, I said, I don't immediately forward this. I tapped the leverage folder to every oversight agency I know how to reach. I'll let your independent auditor find what I already did, and if you correct it, we all move on with our lives. The treasurer swallowed, and if we don't agree, then I stop being a neighbor, I said, and go back to being what I used to be. Silence. Then, finally, the president sagged a little. We'll accept those terms. It didn't end there, of course. The sheriff's office subpoenaed emails. Carol's messages, full of nasty little asides about illegals and old women who don't know their place, became part of her case. She ended up pleading down to a misdemeanor, but with probation, mandatory counseling, and a very stern note in the record about harassment. The audit, it found exactly what I'd circled: self-dealing on contracts, sloppy bookkeeping, and enough errors that the treasurer and president both resigned for health reasons before the next election. Funny how their health problems started the same week the audit letter went out. The community changed fast after that. New board members ran on transparency and respect. One of them was Mrs. Harper, who'd once just nodded at me by the mailboxes. Another was the young mom with the toddler who'd warned me about Carol's gossip. Drones were explicitly banned, so were anonymous complaints. Neighbors who'd turned away before now stopped to talk. Some apologized. Some didn't have the courage, but they at least met my eyes again. Carlos started parking in our driveway without flinching every time an engine passed. If seeing an HOA bully actually face legal and real-world consequences scratches an itch in your soul, go ahead and hit that like button, because we're not quite done. There was still one more victory coming, and this one wasn't for me. It was for Carlos. Time has a funny way of sanding down the edges of even the ugliest weeks, but every so often, something happens that reminds you exactly why you fought. For us, that moment came in the form of an envelope. It was plain, government plain, white with a tiny window and too many lines of printed text. The kind of envelope that makes people like Carlos go pale. It showed up in our mailbox a few months after Carol's arrest, right when the gossip had finally cooled and the new board was busy rewriting half the rulebook. He brought it in like it was ticking. "Eleanor," he said, holding it with 2 fingers. "It's from immigration." My stomach did a little flip. We'd spent months gathering paperwork, affidavits, letters from neighbors who suddenly remembered he'd helped fix their sprinklers or carried groceries when it was 110 degrees outside. My friend, the immigration attorney who owed me a favor or 3, had turned his case into a tidy narrative. Hardworking man, strong community ties, targeted harassment, documented cooperation with law enforcement. "Open it," I said. His hands shook. I took the envelope gently, slid a knife along the top, and unfolded the letter. It was government plain, too. No fireworks, no gold seal. Just a handful of paragraphs, dense and formal. I read the key sentence twice before saying it out loud. "Your application has been approved." For a second, he just stared. Then his shoulders dropped in a way I had never seen before. Not tired, not defeated. Just relieved. "Free. Approved," he repeated. He laughed, a little disbelieving. "So, I don't have to look over my shoulder every time a cop drives by." "You can wave at them," I said, politely, "or ignore them like the rest of us." He pulled me into a hug, so tight my glasses shifted. For the first time since this all started, I felt my own eyes sting. Later that evening, we celebrated the way we always should have been allowed to, quietly in our backyard. The string lights glowed soft and warm over the pool. The new HOA policy, no drones, no intrusive surveillance, no anonymous complaints, sat framed in the clubhouse, but I liked my version better, the silence above our wall. Just sky, no buzzing. Neighbors started dropping by one. Mrs. Harper brought a pie. The young mom with the toddler came with lemonade and an awkward smile. "I'm glad she's gone," the mom said, meaning Carol without saying her name. It felt like we were all being watched all the time. "You were," I replied. That's kind of the point of people like her. They make everyone smaller, so they can feel big. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not letting it slide." I shrugged. I got bored. It wasn't true, of course. I didn't do it because I was bored. I did it because I've seen what happens when nobody pushes back, when the little tyrants get to use their tiny kingdoms as practice runs for something worse. Carol moved away, eventually. Somewhere with no roses to measure, I hope. The old board resigned, one by one. The new board sends out newsletters about community events and shade tree grants instead of moral standards. The words privacy and respect actually means something now. Carlos teases me that I run the neighborhood from my porch. I don't. I just sit with my tea, watch the sunset paint the stucco gold, and enjoy the fact that the loudest thing in my backyard is the pool pump. Every once in a while, though, I'll see a story online. Another HOA abusing power. Another neighbor with a clipboard and too much time. Another drone where it shouldn't be. And I think, somewhere out there, another bored little shark on a golf cart is circling someone who just wants peace. I thought I was done hunting sharks when I retired. Turns out, some of them don't swim in oceans or boardrooms. They buzz over backyards in planned communities. The difference now, I don't have to go looking for them. Sooner or later, they fly their own drones right into someone's net. And if that someone happens to be a retired auditor with a good memory and a better filing system, well, let's just say the sky over their backyard gets very, very quiet after that. Subscribe to the channel and watch the absurd story that occurred at another HOA. Click on the video that's currently appearing on your screen.